On the 15th, there's one at a Walloon Lake Association preserve called the Fields Preserve. So that's next Saturday. I'm not sure what time that is. And
It is 8 a.m.
8 a.m. And do you have to register for that is that just through the Walloon Association, or can you just show up?
So I think we can just show up. I think there were only 5 that were registered, but I can send out the link tomorrow as well. So, or later on.
Okay, great, thanks. And then May 23rd, Kenyon Stebbins will be leading one at a field trip favorite, Waldron Fen. And I think, Daryl, you're leading one through the Conservancy there, but I think I read that was full. Is that correct? Yeah, so if you're not signed up for that, you're out of luck. And so anyway, we might have some other field trips, some special ones coming up. And of course, Lisa, our communications publicity coordinator, I guess I'm not sure what your exact title is, but she's really great about publicizing that on the Petoskey Audubon Google group. So if you're not signed up for that, do so, and you can learn about all the stuff that's going on. And I guess maybe we should mention that the COVID protocol, how is that working out? So the 6-foot spacing and masks and not sharing spotting scopes and binoculars, has that been easy enough to accomplish?
So actually the day after we put that out, the CDC issued new guidelines, and the new guidelines for that people could be outdoors together unmasked. And so far, everyone that has participated in our field trips have been vaccinated. So we've been able to not wear a mask, and we've kept our distance. We have shared scopes a little bit to get a look at something, but it's been good. Yeah.
Good. Well, that's good to hear. I know there's a lot of discussion about how to accomplish that, so it's good things are easing up a little. I think Martha has a conservation report.
I do. For those who don't know, Doug and I are the conservation co-chairs. Can you hear me okay? Our microphone doesn't work well. For a number of years, we've had a bit of a relationship with the the Southern Utah Wilderness Alliance, and we had a speaker come a couple times, and we brought some of those issues to you guys. And I just read tonight that America's Red Rock Wilderness Act, Senate Bill 1535, has been introduced in the Senate. And Senator Dick Durbin is the sponsor, the introducer of that, and there are a number of co-sponsors. Unfortunately, neither of our senators are co-sponsors, but I hope that they will support it. And I would encourage you all to contact Senator Peters and Stabenow and encourage them to support that. What it will do is designate quite a bit of wilderness area in Utah, including some very spectacular areas, including Cedar Mesa, Escalante Canyons, and Kai Parawitz Plateau. And I'm not personally familiar with those places, but I'm sure that they're well worthy of wilderness designation. That's it.
Thank you, Martha. Any other board members have any announcements or anything other than what I've said so far?
Doug, this is Cynthia Donahue, the treasurer. I did put in the chat the our mailing address for press in case somebody needs to know to do their membership. So that information is in there. So it's just there. Oh, and I did want to say one other thing. I know this won't get to a lot of folks, but because it's only the folks that are on Zoom right now. But Lisa and I have figured out that when you're in Google groups, it's not like it was in Yahoo. So the email doesn't come from the sender Petoskey-Audubon Google groups like it used to come from press Yahoo groups. It comes from that person who actually sent the email. And so if you are talking about bird sightings or something like that, or if you're, chatting on there, it would be helpful if you try to remember to put press in the subject line somehow, because I think people are sometimes missing them because they don't recognize the person who sent the thing as a sender, and they just delete it because it just doesn't occur to them. So just a heads up on that.
Okay, good. Thanks. That's an important point. I know there have been a few growing pains with Google Groups since we switched over from Yahoo. So I guess it's starting to work out better. And I've seen lots of recent sightings posted, so that's good to see. Does anybody have any sightings that they'd like to share?
Doug, I just want to add one other thing about the Google groups. The other thing is that if people want to get on Google groups, we have to put them on. There's no way, they have to send Lisa an email or me, and that is on the membership form, but most people send both parts of the membership form back and don't keep the valuable information. So again, if people are saying I'm not on the group, they have to get in touch with us because we have to physically put them on. You can't put yourself in the group like you could with Yahoo.
Right, yeah, thanks for that reminder, and thanks to Lisa and Cynthia for administering that. I know that's a bit of extra work to do, so appreciate you taking care of that. And actually, Martha and I have we've been gone for a while. Thanks also to Lisa for coordinating the last meeting in our absence. And I've seen that there's been lots of emails or information about the book inheritance that we got. So if some of you aren't aware of that, maybe Cynthia, would you like to just mention that, the books that are available from Hank Pfeiffer?
Sure. I sent out on Google Groups in no particular order list of books that Hank Pfeiffer owned and that his son Henry wanted to get good homes for. And I was thinking that what I would do is take off all the books that somebody has spoken for and resend it. The issue is that a certain number of the books have no author, and the reason is not because I didn't bother to do it. It's because we got photographs of a spread of books and then a photograph, moved over a little bit, and so I couldn't read anything on on many of the books except the title, and that's why it's lacking the authors. So that makes it a little harder, but maybe you just want a potluck book and pick one that seems like it might be fun. And Kenyon and I will gather them all up from Henry later in the month or the beginning of June and distribute them to the people who ask for them. Okay.
It seems like he had quite an extensive bird book library, and it's a good chance to pick up a book if one strikes your fancy. So take a look at the list that Cynthia's put together if you haven't already, and if you'd like something, let her know. Okay, with that, we can go on to sharing any sightings. And like I was saying before, Martha and I, we had a really great trip. We were rafting the Colorado River through the Grand Canyon for 18 days in April. And it was a very fun, exciting trip. And we didn't actually, we had binoculars, but we didn't really use them that much because oftentimes you had to pay attention to other things. But we did see some interesting birds that I'll share with you. So we saw 5 or 6 California condors, which some of you might have read that were recently reintroduced to the Grand Canyon. They're doing quite well. And in fact, most of them kind of hang out in a particular area. So we saw some soaring up high, and that was fun to see. And we heard lots of canyon wrens. I don't think we ever saw one. They're pretty secretive, but we heard them everywhere with their melodic call echoing through the slot canyons and the the sides of the river. And we saw scads of violet green swallows. So it's a swallow of the west or the southwest, and there are scads of them certain times of the day swooping over the river, catching aquatic insects. And then we also saw lots of bats, which I know aren't birds, but it's a interesting flying creature, which unfortunately we don't see much in Michigan anymore because most of our bats have been killed by white nose syndrome. So it was fun to see lots and lots of bats in the evening and early morning hours. So anyway, those are some interesting things that we saw in our absence, in our travels last month. Anybody else have any interesting things that they've seen near or far?
I was lucky enough to have a northern mockingbird hanging out at my house this weekend. And unfortunately, as of Monday morning, I have not seen it, but that was a treat.
And I saw that you had posted that on the Google groups with very explicit directions on how to go and see it. So hopefully some other people got over there and were able to take a look at it before it disappeared. So thanks for doing that.
I don't have a sighting personally, but somebody who's been on Prass walks in the past contacted me a couple weeks ago. Somebody in Charlevoix or around Charlevoix area didn't want visitors, but she actually had a golden crowned sparrow at her feeders, which is a bird of the West that does not come into Michigan pretty infrequently. I think even Whitefish Point only has like 2 or 3 records of golden crowned sparrow, so it's a pretty big rarity in the state.
Did you get to see it, Daryl?
I did not. I had to go up to Whitefish Point to fill in for the waterbird counter, and it took off while I was up there.
Too bad. Apparently, it's pretty easy to find bald eagles. We had 5 Saturday on the North American Migration Count, the Global Big Day. And we had 3 today to start off the walk at Pond Hill. So 8 bald eagles in 4 days.
How is your waterbird counting at Whitefish Point going? Was that interesting? Have you done that before, Daryl?
Not before this year. I've filled in for Matt twice this spring now. I think I'm done actually having to fill in for him. So far the count up there it's been a little slow. We've had all these winds from the north and northwest and no real south winds yet, but I think that's supposed to shift later this week, so there should be a very big push of birds coming through, I would expect.
Great. Okay, well, thanks for sharing those interesting sightings. So if nobody has anything else, we can head on towards our program of the night. So last call for anybody to add anything else as far as news or announcements.
So I'd like to just make a quick announcement before the Young Birders actually take over. So I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware that we are having our 4th year of the Michigan.
I can't hear you very well, Lindsay. I don't know.
It's not working. Okay, I'm gonna unplug my headphones because sometimes. Now you'll just also maybe hear my child. So I have my own young birder who's a little young for all of this, but so we're in our 4th year of the Michigan Young Birders Camp, and so we're going to keep it virtual for this year. We did it virtual last year as well. But if you know of any young birders ages 13 to 18 who might be interested, you can send them to the Michigan Audubon website. It's a really great opportunity this year. We've decided, since we're still virtual, to spread it out over the course of 3 weeks. So the kids will be meeting with the leaders every Tuesday and Wednesday for 3 weeks, but we'll give them assignments when they're not with us so they can do more birding and enjoy some things and learn on their own and share with each other. So we're trying to get the word out because we'd like to reach some more young birders. And so it ties in really nicely with the young birders who are here today and what they're going to talk about. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys were all aware. And if you're interested in more information, you can find that on Michigan Audubon's website, or you can contact me directly.
Okay, great. Sounds like a great program. So we'll try to pass the word to any youngsters that we think might be interested, or their families. And so that is a good segue, I guess, into our program tonight. So it's a presentation about the Michigan Young Birders Network. And Corinne Tenenbaum and even Weister. Corinne is from Ann Arbor and Evan is from Traverse City, I understand. So you guys are involved in this network, and so you can tell us all more about it. And I think that's a real important topic, you know, looking, except for you guys, and I guess Lindsay, you know, looking at the screen, the pictures, you know, everybody in our group is, you know, middle-aged or older probably. It's a pretty geriatric group. And so it's, pardon?
Except for Daryl.
Well, yeah, they're maybe middle-aged. Anyway, you know, we don't have many, you know, teenagers for sure. We've had a few over the years, but, you know, we probably have hardly anybody under the age of 40 that shows up to our meetings. You know, it'd really be nice to, you know, for getting more young people interested and carry on when we're all too old to do it. So anyway, with that, Corinne and Evan, the Zoom screen is yours. Why don't you tell us all about the Michigan Young Birders Network?
All right, thank you so much. Thank you to Petoskey Audubon for having us. We're so honored to be with you today to talk about the Michigan Young Birders Network and what we've been up to. I'll go ahead and share my screen. Hopefully you all will be able to see that. Lindsay will be monitoring the chat, so if you have any questions for Evan or I as we go along, feel free to drop those and we'll answer them at the end. So we're here, like I said, to talk about the Michigan Young Birders Network. So Michigan Young Birders Network is first and foremost a program of Michigan Audubon. Our goal is to connect young birders from across the state and outside of Michigan who are ages 13 to 18. And we do this by offering a collective space to share enthusiasm, knowledge, and skills related to birding. It's primarily young birder led, although we have significant support from Michigan Audubon and numerous other specialists in the field. And we hope to continue working with the network to promote bird conservation in our communities at the state level and hopefully beyond. So a little bit about who and where we are. This is just a couple of our young birders. We have about 14 in the network, and you can see we hail from all over the state. I'm from Ann Arbor, and Evan is from Traverse City. We also have a couple that are from Ohio, so we don't limit it to just Michigan, but we're pretty proud of our diversity, both in age and location. So a couple introductions, I'll go ahead and start. So my name's Corinne. I am 16 years old, and I'm in 11th grade at Pioneer High School in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I'm one of the 3 Michigan Young Birders Network's contributor, along with Evan and Jessica. And I really got interested in birds in 2nd grade. I was a part of Feathered Friends, which is a Science Olympiad event for elementary schoolers that introduce kids to the world of birds, among other different scientific topics. But in 9th grade, I joined the Washtenaw Audubon Society, and I've been an active member ever since. I participated in the last two Christmas bird counts in December, and I'm a breeding bird survey volunteer where I survey one of the local high schools. And most recently, I'm monitoring the bluebird boxes there as well. So in sophomore year, there unfortunately are not any bird clubs in the district for students. So I started the Ornithological Society of Pioneer, and I modeled it off of the Washtenaw Audubon Society, so our local chapter. And happy to say that in the virtual environment, we were able to spread the Pioneer High School Club to all of the 4 major high schools in the district. So we have about 18 students that are coming to those meetings. And so we meet bi-weekly, we discuss avian news, talk about local bird sightings, and it's been a great way to meet other young birders in the district that we wouldn't otherwise have met. Also, during that summer, I started a podcast because one of the main issues about attracting young birders is that young birders haven't been exposed to how to bird, what is birding. So Taking Flight is a podcast that's available on most of podcasting platforms like Spotify or Anchor. And it has 11 released episodes that talk about birding 101. So how to bird, and it's coming from me. So I'm hoping that by hearing from a peer, more people will be able to get interested in that. Outside of that, I was a past volunteer at the Bird Center Michigan. So I had some experience with working with injured birds that were brought in due to window collisions or interactions with cats. Aside from that, I'm an e-birder, so all the checklists that I do with the club, as well as birdability surveys at some of the local parks, and have a couple photos along the way. This summer, I'm doing an internship with an Ann Arbor ornithologist, Juliet Berger, so I'll be continuing work with the breeding bird surveys in Ann Arbor and surveying those local areas. And I will be continuing work that I did freshman year with Dr. James Cornelius at Eastern Michigan University, studying the lead levels in American robins and American goldfinches. As a result of the Flint water crisis, we'll be putting on transmitters and seeing how their migratory paths are influenced as a result of some neurological effects of those high lead levels. So I'll be working with her graduate students. In addition, I'll be doing some independent work with past Christmas bird count data. Often it's collected at the national level through the National Audubon Society, but there hasn't been a lot of work done on the local level. So I'll be taking some of that data and hopefully finding some trends with environmental factors and specific to southeastern Michigan. And I'll be working with the Winger Lab at the University of Michigan to do that. So all upcoming plans that I'm really excited, and working with the Michigan Young Birders Network and hopefully pursuing a career in ecology and evolutionary biology after I graduate. That's research-based.
Hello, thank you to Petoskey Audubon for inviting me and Corinne to present to you guys and about the Michigan Young Birders Network. We really appreciate it. My name's Evan Reister. I'm in 11th grade. I'll be 16 for a few more days, but then I'll be 17. I go to Traverse City Central High School here in Traverse City, and I've been a birder for about 2 years now. I really started to get into it after I kind of started playing around with a point and shoot camera at my grandparents' house, who always had a bird feeder out, and it just kind of took off from there. Within the last 2 years, I've really dove into the photography and other wildlife, of course, but birds in specific. Bird photography is really my passion, and birding in general. I work at the local Wild Birds Unlimited, where I enjoy helping people with feeding birds and different information. I'm an avid e-birder. I really enjoy submitting different birds I find around the county and around the country even. I've racked up about 298 species in the 2 years of birding. To give you an idea, I've been putting a lot of time into it because it is my favorite thing to do now. With my photography, I've been taking serious pictures for about a year now, and I've gotten honorable mentions from Scholastic most recently, and then the Oliver Art Center a few months ago. Because of my appreciation for birds, I really hope to take up a career in wildlife biology, with maybe a side degree in ornithology. And the reason why I like the bird photography aspect to it is it brings birds closer to people, because everybody likes looking at beautiful pictures, no matter the age. And it really brings you closer to the birds too, because you got to spend time figuring out how to photograph them and where to find them, and it's really a in-depth topic, and it's always a fun journey. Some of my favorite birds are the Florida scrub jay, because of their amazing personalities and their endangered status right now. I've been to Merritt Island National Wildlife Refuge in Florida twice for the Florida scrub jay, because I really appreciate the bird. I think they're beautiful, and their social structure is really intricate. The burrowing owl is probably one of my absolute favorites because of their personalities. I've spent hours photographing the burrowing owl. Each one seems to have a different personality, which you don't really find in birds very often. So that's kind of why I enjoy the burrowing owl. I took spring break trip out to Arizona for a week, and then Nevada for a week this last month of March and April of this year, and found a lot of species out there. one of the rare ones was a long-eared owl, which I found at Henderson Bird Viewing Preserve. I don't know if any of you have been there or heard of that. Really beautiful place, kind of outside of Vegas, but there ended up being a long-eared owl out on the trails, and I got to watch this bird for a long time. It was out in the open, middle of the day. It was crazy. Just about every Audubon member ended up showing up for that. I also got good looks at the violet green swallow, which are just absolutely beautiful birds. The Bohemian waxwing I spent a lot of time with this winter because we had about a flock of 200 come in near my house feasting on a hawthorn tree. So I got some pretty good looks at those guys, and those are really interesting birds as well. The black bull warbler is another one of my favorites because of its migratory habits and how impressive that bird is for its size. And then the buff-breasted, just because it's so beautiful. And then the greater roadrunner was one of my favorites from out west too. So that's kind of a summary of me and why I like birds, and I really appreciate the photography of it. So we'll continue on if you want, Corinne. Thank you. So how we got started, we launched in June of 2020 with the virtual Michigan Young Birders Camp. Interest it kind of went on from there, and me, Corinne, and another young birder worked with Lindsay to start developing the network to help engage more young birders and attract more, letting kids communicate about birds and, you know, just get it out to more young kids. So that's kind of how we started. Our group has a wide variety of talents. Some of us are photographers, not just myself. Lots of painters and drawers. Corinne and one other of our birders has a podcast, which is great for information. You can see the two labeled here if you want to check them out. They're really, really good. Lots of information all the time. Great for kids too. So we'll talk about ways to participate with the network and how we engage young birders. The main way that we communicate with our young birders is through Discord. It's a live chat where young birders can talk about recent bird sightings, upcoming meetings, fun facts, or different articles we might stumble upon, questions, or a lot of the times somebody will be taking a trip somewhere, whether it's in the state or around the country, ask about different hotspots or if anybody has visited that area. Different internship opportunities come up a lot. Kids asking other kids about questions if they volunteered here or if, you know, they've spent time working with such and such. And then of course, bird ID. Kids are always quick to jump on a bird ID and try to help out each other there. It's really fun to work with. And then with that, we also have a few upcoming events, which we'll talk about in the next few slides here. Social media has been a big focus of ours, mainly because kids of our age are very focused on social media, and we think that if we target social media, we might be able to attract more young birders through it. We're currently on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, where we post different content throughout the week, such as Bird Trivia Tuesday, where a fact is in the description of the picture, and you got to guess what the bird is. Different fun content that is engaging and hopefully attracts more young birders. So, Corinne, did you want to cover this? Okay.
Yeah, I'll jump into this one. So we all meet as a network once a month on the first Wednesday at 7 p.m. And that's where we really come together, talk about what we like outside of the Discord channel. So we have a pretty standard agenda that we have, which starts very similar to most Audubon societies with local bird sightings from around the state that we've seen that we want to share. We also give one young birder at each meeting an opportunity to share their story and their journey, and that helps to build a really welcoming atmosphere among all the young birders, even though we're miles and miles away. We also focus on a monthly bird group, so just Evan and I put together presentations that focus on specific species. The ones you see there are the ones we've done in the past few months to help with bird ID and some background information on those groups that we know that a lot of people struggle with that are common in areas. So we always make sure we include one of those, and a conservation topic as well. And we most recently did, because it's the breeding season, birding ethics surrounding baby birds. So they often come from topics that we've heard in our local Audubon chapters and that we think maybe young birders aren't as educated on. So those are always great to talk about in a large setting. And then of course, any upcoming projects that we're working on as the network too. So one of our biggest and proudest projects that we're doing is the Plover Press, which is our e-newsletter that goes out in the middle of each month. So those feature a recap of our general meetings, as well as announce the future bird group and conservation topic, and provides resources that people can come and be prepared for discussion on how they approach those different topics and any ID help that they have for the bird group. They also tend to feature blog posts by our young birders, whether they went out west or out east on a trip, stories of many of the counts. And I think most recently, the Great Backyard Bird Count featured a lot of our young birders out in their yards and what they saw. And of course, any life lessons or personal updates to make it feel like anyone can contribute in any way they can. And of course, any other upcoming events. So some of our future plans of the network, we're trying, it's been about a year, and so we've definitely grown our network from the 5 that we had at camp to about 14 members now, but we're definitely looking ahead to see what else we can do. So one of our biggest projects that we're attempting to take on is proposing an annual Young Birder Symposium. So one of the big drawbacks of being a young birder is the age restrictions that I think maybe a lot of adult birders don't realize of. It's hard to get research, it's hard to get internships and opportunities that you can get into at an early age, because a lot of them require experience or simply have red tape in terms of paperwork. So the idea of giving young birders a platform to talk about their ideas and their journeys and some projects that they're interested in working on is really important. And so we're hoping that we'll be able to establish something. It will be virtual probably this fall because of COVID, but hopefully it would be an in-person 3-day event similar to any of the other conferences or symposiums that a lot of Audubon societies host, featuring talks and contests and networking that gives those young birders a greater opportunity to branch out. But mainly young birders talking to other young birders about what they're interested in, what they see are the most problematic issues in the birding community and how they would work to address it. The other project that we're thinking about is a Young Birders Book Club. It's another way to attract young birders that maybe err on the side of avid reading. It would be an extension of our general meetings, and we choose one monthly book and we create a book list, and the idea is to encourage young birders to not only bird, but read bird-related literature. So ornithological research that comes out, memoirs from other famous birders in the field, and of course, conservation success stories and things that we need to continue working on. So you can see our title list in progress. Hopefully some of those names ring a bell for many of you.
So another one of our proposed idea is young birder-led workshops. This is where a young birder would take on presenting and creating a workshop for other young birders. Personally, I've proposed doing basic photography skills for birds, and then another workshop could be editing those photos, not to the point where you're distorting the bird, but to a more presentable placement of the picture. Drawing and painting, including sketching, also has been proposed by some of our young birders. I've also proposed a bird box building session where we discuss different designs of bird houses that can help bird populations around the state, such as bluebird houses, kestrel houses, owl boxes, all those good ones. And we're also wanting to plan bird-centered trips with the young birders around the state, hopefully to get them in person and better for communication and learning. These all provide more knowledge for young birders, and it's great for us to come together as a whole and be run under the Michigan Young Birders Network in association with Michigan Audubon. We're wanting to, once we can go back in person, we're wanting to do monthly field trips to a birding hotspot somewhere in the state, allowing young birders to meet outside of the summer camp and kind of have a more frequent conversation with each other, and another good learning experience and fun to get out birding with each other in person. And we also think that if we do a monthly bird walk, this might attract more young birders to the program because it's not virtual and it's in person with communication with each other. But yeah.
Yeah, so one of the biggest questions I think most young birders get and a lot of adult birders ask is how do we make birding more accessible to youth? We want youth in our clubs, but we don't know how to get it. So we thought we'd start off by talking about why we think it's important that young birders participate, mainly because we are the future of birding, like you guys mentioned earlier. At some point, we need to pass on the reins, right? And we want to be there and want to be educated about the issues, and we want to be able to step into those roles to make sure we get legislation passed and we can advocate for those populations and make sure that they're continuing, especially in light of the decline in birds over the last 30 years. So really making sure that they're there and that they're prevalent and that we're bringing them in as soon as possible.
Yeah, so with this, we're trying to include more young birders to the program and around the country in general. Like Corinne said, it's important we attract more people, specifically of the younger ages, to this amazing hobby. There's that stigma around it that it's only for older people that bird, and there's not kids that are into it. But from my time spent doing photography and talking to other kids on social media that are from around the country, I've learned that there are a lot of young birders out there. And I think if we made that more vocal, more people might be attracted to the idea of birding. Because I've taken friends out who aren't birders, they like wildlife, and turns out they really enjoy it because it is such a good learning experience and it gets you outside with nature and you always learn something new. It's really an enjoyable hobby and a lifestyle for some. Different tools that we might be able to use are biology classes, maybe trying to influence more curriculum in school to focus on birds, especially with elementary school. I went to a charter school, so I had a little bit of that, but I know in public education, there's not as much information or um, education on birds in general and how important they are to our environment. And we have been talking about how that's an important aspect to attracting more young birders, and it's really going to be key to hit it at the younger age where kids start to get interested in different activities.
Yeah, and from there, it's I think the question is how do I, as an adult birder, get more kids individually, and not as a long-term goal of transitioning, like Evan said, into biology curriculum. So if your kid goes to an elementary school, talk to the biology teacher. Say, hey, why don't you do a unit when you're talking about ecosystems and biomes? Go out on a bird walk and teach them, because that's something that's really going to be impactful to a lot of elementary schoolers. And I think a lot of young birders, they either are into it in the niche or they're not, and that leaves out a large large proportion of the population that are just interested in nature in general. So I always tell my friends who are they go like hiking, they like being outdoors, come observe some birds, and they'll find themselves looking at being more careful. Because if they care about birds, then they're more likely to care about their environment in general and protecting it. So make sure that you spread word of mouth. So if you have kids or you have friends that have kids that are interested in nature, interested in birds, and they want to help protect it, get them into birding, help them ID their local backyard birds, tell them about eBird, tell them about the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, and start getting them at a younger age, because that's when you're going to have a more influential role in terms of birding and getting them out. I was starting my ornithological society, and I started with myself only in my sophomore year, and it really branched out of making an Instagram page that I just posted pictures that I had. I talked about the podcast. People used to send me in photos outside their window. What bird is this? And a lot of people follow the page now who are not birders or not in the club, but making birds fun, putting humor, telling about crazy bird holidays like International Owl Awareness Days. These are ways that you can get people interested and get them hooked on birds because they're super special and super important. So it's got to start with, I think that's important, and going long term of changing curriculums that it includes birds as part of the biology curriculum, and that local Audubon chapters acknowledge that we want more young birders involved and start targeting and hosting events for young birders, getting them involved with the Michigan Young Birders Network and starting at an earlier age. Yeah, so we just wanted to close out and say thank you to Lindsay, Mike, Molly, Heather, and all of Michigan Audubon for all the work that they did to help with the network and get it running, and of course at all the general meetings and guidance. Eternally grateful for all that they can do to make that atmosphere great, and so that we can keep connecting with people in and outside of the state. And now we'll be happy to take any questions that you might have.
Okay,
Very nice presentation. Very nice.
very nice. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I was wondering how do you reach out to high schools all across Michigan and contact like a biology teacher or something and let spread the word that your group exists and extend an invitation to join?
Yes. So I think I take a lot of biology classes in my school. So there's about 20 biology teachers at my high school that I make sure to send out. So contacting one and forwarding that on, making sure we get brochures in nature centers are really important. There's usually always a spokesperson. So that can be a direct email saying, hey, we're looking for young birders. So if you have a nature center in Ann Arbor, we have the Leslie Science and Nature Center. So they have a lot of bird-centered oriented. They have raptor events that they bring to the elementary schools. So making sure you get in contact with your local nature center saying, hey, we're looking for, because they run summer camps every year. So they'll definitely have young kids that are interested.
I would,
Can I just add to that really quick? Sorry, Daryl.
go ahead.
That's actually something that we need help with. So that's one of the ways that our chapters, people like you, could be really helpful for us. Michigan Audubon actually paid to have an email sent out to all of the biology teachers on a listserv last year, and we got very little return. It's not really very easy to find biology teachers for high schools across the state. And so if that's someplace that you have a connection or you know of someone, it's really helpful because the young birders that we have in the network are really great about talking to the teachers that they're in contact with. But if we want to be able to expand, we're going to need help with that. I've been trying to find a good way, and unfortunately, there isn't one. So that's something to keep in mind and a great way that you could actually help with the Young Birders Network.
I was just going to say, well, first of all, a terrific presentation, both of you. It was really, really great and well organized and well done. And one other avenue I think that I'm seeing develop for reaching out to youth, maybe even a little younger than kind of what you're targeting, but perhaps also in the demographic year after as well, is actually public libraries are oftentimes looking for opportunities for presentations or even field trips. I know I partner with our local library or a youth librarian for some field trips for birds and butterflies and things. And, the good thing about the youth librarians is they don't have to really worry about teaching so much the Common Core and all that kind of stuff, and they can just kind of focus on more fun things. So that's something to definitely look into.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We haven't considered that. Thank you.
So we did have a question in here. Evan, what are some of your favorite places to bird near Traverse City? And do you lead any trips there?
So I would definitely be open to leading trips if I had enough people interested. I'm on the east side of Traverse City, more towards Williamsburg and Elk Rapids. One of my favorite places recently is a place called Maple Bay. It sits right on the edge of Petoskey Pond if you're looking on Google Maps or something like that. But recently, because the lake level has dropped, it's caused for the edge of that pond, which you can the edge of it, or there's mud seal and solitary sandpiper and yellow legs all over, and they let you get fairly close. So that's been really fun. And in Maple Bay, it's a really nice place because you have mixed forest with conifers, and then old hardwood. And then you also have a field on the one side and then Lake Michigan on the other with swamp and sandbars. So it's a really good combination of habitat, which I always look for when I'm wanting to go to a good birding spot. Meyer Fields has become a recent hotspot in the area. So when they put in the Meyer here in Acme, they cleared a mass amount of land, but nobody came in to build. So it's really nice prairie / meadow with drainage ponds out in it. And I've actually had goshawk fly over there. I've had kestrels and northern harrier, we've been seeing a lot of snipe out there recently. Even some warblers come through, but a lot of good field birds, clay-colored sparrow, all the Savannah sparrows, all those real good meadow birds, tons of meadow larks. So that's another good spot. Skigmog Swamp is kind of popular, which is more east of Traverse City. It's kind of a good spot for winter wren and that sort of thing. A few more swamp warblers like Nashville and Blackburnian. Boardman Lake Logan's Landing is probably without doubt the biggest hotspot in Traverse City. It sits on the south side of Boardman Lake, and there's tons of mud flats and sandbars which attract lots of shorebirds and different types of waterfowl. And then there's a boardwalk that goes along the whole east side of the lake, which is always good for warblers. Yesterday on my lunch break from school, I went out and had a few warbling vireos, a northern water thrush, and yellow-rumped and palm as usual. So, but normally that loads up with warblers here in the next few days and weeks maybe. Last spring I had a nice flock of blackpolls move through that spot. And then of course you get out west towards the sand dunes, and there's some really cool species out there like the hooded warbler and the prairie warbler breeds out there too. So there's lots of good hot spots in Traverse City. If people are interested, then yeah, I would definitely be interested in hosting some kind of get together.
Great. And you answered the other question. It was asking where you saw the redpoll last year, and you answered that with Logan's Landing. So I don't know if anyone else has any other questions.
Oh,
I would like, oh, go ahead, Evan.
Because I'm closer to Petoskey, I just had an indigo bunting fly through the backyard, and I had a hummingbird out on the feeder this morning. So they're coming soon. So yeah.
Send them up here.
All right.
So I just wanted to make sure that you all understood that the social media, the blog posts, and the e-newsletter that the kids all put together is open to anyone. So you can find information about that on the Michigan Audubon website. So if you guys want to keep kind of in touch with these young birders and learn about more of our young birders that are part of the network, there's at least one blog post a month that gets posted to the website, and the e-newsletter goes out once a month. You can sign up for that on the website as well, and follow their social media. And the links to all of that are under the Young Birders page on the Michigan Audubon website. So if you're interested, you're more than welcome and encouraged to follow up with those things too.
I know of a teacher in Harbor Springs High School that inquired that a biology teacher, or no, it was the junior high school, Harbor Springs Junior High. And so man, I'll make a point of passing that on to that teacher anyway, and see what comes of it. That's a really great presentation. You guys have great enthusiasm and are really doing some good things. So, congratulations to you for that, and thank you, and thanks for sharing your evening, giving a presentation to our Petoskey Audubon group this evening.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, thank you so much. It was an honor to be here. Hope that you guys all learned something, and we hope to see you soon at maybe one of our field trips in the state.
Well, one other question I had, is there an upper age limit? When do you graduate out of the group? You guys are, turning 17. Do you have to quit when you're 18 or something?
It's pretty much 18 as far as just because the younger kids, we don't really, that liability isn't something we really want to take on. So
sure,
if you get past 18, you can still be associated, and I'm sure we can still communicate through social media and that sort of thing. But the network's really focused on that, later middle school to high school age of kids that will then maybe consider a career in birding and ornithology and wildlife studies. So, yeah.
Yeah, but there's no restrictions there. I know that a lot of kids from my high school that are in the club graduated, and they're still in contact in their group chat and whatever they have and they're up to. More like the official meetings. A lot of people graduate and get busy with a lot of other clubs, but they're always welcome in the channel.
Yeah, we have official age restrictions, but we're not really that picky about it because that's a great opportunity for our young birders, especially as people like Corinne and Evan and Jessica, who unfortunately was not able to join us tonight. As they get older, we're not going to get rid of them. They're a great resource of knowledge for our younger birders. You know, these kids don't even realize it, but my 3-year-old sat on my lap and watched Evan's presentation on warblers last week at their meeting and was talking about warblers for the next 2 days. So they have a greater impact than I think even they realize. And so that's a great question, but we're not going to technically kick anybody out. And I think these kids are always open to more mentors in the field of birding as well. So although we do officially have age limits, we are pretty open when it comes to that as well.
Great. Well, thanks again. I guess that wraps up our presentation this evening. Any final questions or comments from anybody in the audience? So hearing none, just a final thanks and good luck to you guys, and enjoy the summer season.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you so much.